Shalom, 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 everyone. Thank all of y'all for logging on for this episode. Thank all of y'all for logging on for this episode of My Take with Rosh Ya'acob. I am Rosh Ya'acob. Got a good one for you guys tonight. Thanks to the BK Apologist. I appreciate him for letting me use his content. I seen this in one of the groups. I'm actually in a group with the BK Apologist, and he tagged me along with everyone else in this video. And when he tagged me along with everyone else in this video, I was like, okay, let me check it out. And I was in shock at what I heard. And I was like, wait a minute. And I had to listen to it a couple of times because it really took me aback. Hey, shalom, Brother Tony. Shalom, shalom. How are you, Aki? Hopefully everything is going fine with you on this eve of the last day of Pesach, the last day of Unleavened Bread. And this is the special Pesach edition. As I said last week, we're going to do a special Pesach edition. Oh, that's good. That's good, Aki. I'm glad you're doing good. The BK Apologist, thank him again for letting me use his content to try to bring some clarity to some things. So I'm going to try to use this to bring some clarity. I feel like some things kind of went left, and I want to bring them right. I know y'all will get used to my corny jokes in a while. Y'all be like, man, that dude's hilarious. Anyway. All right, so as y'all seen from the title page, just going to go back to that. And it says it's Passover Pagan, right? And this is one where the apologist, hey, shalom, shalom, Makoti. Glad to see you in the building. This is gonna be a good one. Hopefully I'm not gonna take too long with it. But yeah, this was one I was like, wow. I wanted to deal with a video that you showed me, Makoti, with the guy. That's what I originally was gonna do for Pesach. But when I seen this one from my brother BK, I said, nah, I gotta deal with this. The guy was like, maybe later I will deal with him, but I gotta deal with this one right here. So I said, well, let me go ahead and jump on and deal with this. Okay. So, from what I know of the BK Apologist, he is a brother that studied apologetics and real good with debates and so forth and so on. Real intellectual. So as I looked over the video again, I said, well, maybe he does believe the way these guys believe. Because the people that, as you see, that he's using are very, they're not coming from a complete believer type background. And I'll explain to you as we get into the video. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. This. And we're going to start off. I'm gonna try to get what I do like about BK. When he does these different videos, he only spends about a half hour. So we should get through this whole thing. That's what I'm counting on. We should get through this whole thing. All right. And he does have some good content. I don't agree with him on this one. Some videos he have, I do agree with him on certain things. But this one, I was like, where in the world is he going with this? So it kind of really took me by surprise. And for most of y'all, especially those of us who are celebrating Pesach, celebrating Passover, in this Passover season of HaMatzot, or Unleavened Bread, and this is the last day of it. It started once nightfall happened or began. For most of us, it's like, what in the world is he talking about? You'll see exactly what I mean. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and click on to his video.
Is Passover pagan?
Yes, that's what he's asking. Is Passover pagan? So we're going to get into this.
Yeah, what's going on, party people? The place to be. I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Hope everybody's doing well. Of course, we gotta say what's up to the party people in the chat. We got Wawo first to be in the chat. Way to go! And of course, we have the indelible, the incredible, the outrageous, the gift of God Himself, May2D2. We got Bodega Lady Dean you on the check-in. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not already, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend that's him again. And if you like how it goes down at the BK Apologist, please show your support via PayPal. And if you'd like to be a monthly supporter of BK, you
I
can
gotta
do
really
so
start getting all this stuff together on mine. Be like, hey, yeah,
so
blah blah blah.
Some of the goodies,
you know,
to enhance your daily.
Put in a bunch of shameless plugs.
Or bi-weekly. I'm not here to judge. As long as you get into the word, that's what's important,
Yeah,
right?
Start hitting it up like that. So let's get into this, BK. Let's get into this.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, to have B Moses in the building was good, man. Appreciate that, sir. Appreciate that. So, you're probably wondering what in the world is Fredo going to talk about today.
Yes, we are.
Right, we're going to talk about Passover,
mm-hmm.
We are in the midst of
mm-hmm.
this amazing festival, celebrating the rescue of Israel from the house of bondage, right? But if that's such a great thing, why am I even talking about it within terms of paganism, right?
All right, now, yes, it was a rescue. It was a deliverance. I like to use the word deliverance, but I can see where he's coming in with rescue, so I'm not going to nitpick. But again, yeah, like you said, if that's such a good thing, which of course it is, then why is he trying to equate it with paganism? Let's look further to find out.
So you have to,
mm-hmm.
So you got to stick to the end to see why am I even having this discussion with you guys. And the two questions I will want us to be able to answer is, one, does Passover have pagan origins? And two, is Passover itself a pagan festival? Right? So with that being said,
okay,
let's get into the slides. All right, we're going to look at Exodus, a commentary, the Old Testament library by Martin Knoll.
All right, now I'm going to stop and look at all of these works that he's using, because for those of y'all who've seen the promo video I did for this, for those of y'all who've seen the promo, y'all would know that there's a lot going on with these different authors that he's going to be quoting from. Many of these authors I've heard of from religious courses I had at Morgan State University. Big up MSU. You know it. You know. I know they came from somewhere else, but I'm going to add that in for Morgan. You know, big up them Bears. Anyway. So So we had a religious course. I told y'all, but my corniness gonna become funny one day. Y'all gonna be like, man, this guy cracks me up. He's so corny. All right. So, at Morgan State University, it had this religious course, and a lot of people took it because they felt like it was going to be talking so good about the Bible. And one thing that all of us learned quickly is that in theologian school or theology courses, for the most part, they do not teach you in a way to make you believe in the Bible. I will repeat. They do not teach you to have faith and believe in the Bible. they teach you what's somebody's birthday? Oh, happy birthday, whoever birthday it is. Is your birthday, Sister Michelle? I'm not sure. Or it's not your birthday. I don't know who birthday it is. I say that Pamela happy birthday. I'm like, who birthday is it? But anyway, and oh, he said that was accidental. All right. So in the theology courses that I took at Morgan, one thing I learned was that they do not want you to believe in the Bible. This guy went all the way out to try to discredit the Bible. He started going to places saying the Bible got this from here, the Bible got that from there, the people didn't originally write this. He started talking to you about the J source and the L source and the E source and all these different sources, and this book was put together this way, that book was put together that way. And as you sit there and listen, you be like, oh my goodness, like, can I even believe this Bible? Right? And there was people there. It was an older woman there who was, she was attempting to be, I think she was there because she was attempting to get her degree in theology from Morgan. And she wanted to be a preacher. And she had a fit with this teacher. He would purposely say things to just destroy whatever faith you had. And she would just get so caught up in her feelings. And I would say, sis, you can't let them get you like that. You know, if you got faith, just have faith. You know, this is just a class. But she was just taking it to heart and just couldn't believe the things that this guy was saying. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because if you look at this book right here, it says Exodus, a commentary, the Old Testament library by Martin Noth, right? One thing I want you to understand, in the Hebraic community, in Judaism, they do not call the Tanakh the Old Testament. Again, they do not call the Tanakh the Old Testament. So what we have to understand is this is a book written by a theologian named Martin Noth, who was a Christian. Now, of course, my brother BK is a Christian apologist. So it's understandable, of course, he's going to use works made by Christians. But in this sense, this guy who wrote this book is coming from a stance where he has this idea that, well, you know, they begin to say stuff in class like Jewish myth, like whenever they talk about the Bible or the old or the Tanakh, they would say Jewish myths, and then just roll off their tongue as easy as saying Greek myths, right? And their idea was that the Canaanites and the Israelites are the same people. That's how it's taught. And we want to see as we go further, and we want to even hear BK kind of allude to that, which made me think, well, maybe BK believes that. And maybe that's why he's coming from it from this angle. because he kind of looks at it that way. Because clearly, as we get into the text, as we hear what he's reading, and then I go to different scriptures, we're going to see that the Bible is saying something completely different than what this commentator is saying in this theological work. The Bible is saying something completely different, right? All right, so let me let him go ahead and hear what this theologian has to say, and then we'll look at some scriptures and see what the Bible has to say.
No. It says here, the Passover sacrifice stands continually in the foreground. This sacrifice has its own special cultic prehistory, independently of the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
All right, now, did you hear that? I want to make sure you hear. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna stop and read it with him. Let's read this with him. The Passover sacrifice, talking about the Pesach, right? Stands continually in the foreground. This sacrifice has its own special cultic prehistory. All right, so how? I want you to think about this. According to the Bible, the Almighty told Moshe to do this as part of the 10th plague. And this isn't something that Moshe already knew about. This isn't something that the Israelites already knew about, because the Almighty is going to explain to them exactly how to do what it is that he wants them to do. But this theologian says, that he's quoting from Martin Noth, he says that it has a cultic prehistory. Notice the words he's using, right? Cultic and prehistory. That means this Pesach offering was already something that was done and known before the Almighty gave it to the Israelites. So the Bible is the standard. I will reference other things, but it must line up with the scriptures, period. Exactly, Akoti. Exactly. It got to line up with the scriptures. I can't just look at what this guy's saying, and that's the problem I had in those different classes. Now at Morgan, when I disagreed with the teacher and the books that was being used, as long as I could support it with the scripture, he'd say, well, maybe you're right. And he'll give me that, well, it could be as you see it. And he'll just leave it alone. You know, and that was fine for me. But the older woman, as I was telling you, she wanted him just to agree, and he would not agree. And he took great delight in watching her melt. One time, she melted down so bad in the classroom, had to leave out, and was in tears. And he just was sitting there looking smug. And I was like, wow, like, you enjoying this, boy. You having fun right now, picking these people, faith and dreams apart, right? But this, I want you to know this. So what this is hinting to is, forget what you read in the Bible, that the Almighty just told Moshe to do this. This is something that was already being done way before unleavened bread even came about. That's what this guy, Martin Noth, is saying. Look at what he says. The Passover sacrifice stands continually in the foreground. This sacrifice has its own special cultic prehistory, independently of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So he said, forget what you read in that Bible, right? That's what this guy, Martin Noth, is saying. I know what you're reading in the Bible, but I'm telling you, this was around way before it got into that Bible. Now, does that sound like somebody that supports and believes in the Bible, or somebody that's trying to get you to not believe in the Bible? Just want you to think about this, because I was surprised when I seen them using these sources. I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? All right, let's look at what else it says. It says it almost certainly belonged to the milieu of nomadic shepherds, and thus without doubt goes back to the time before they settled in a cultivated region. So what nomadic shepherds are they talking about, or is Noth talking about that this belonged to? The only nomadic shepherds that the Torah taught us about was Abraham and Lot. So was this something that Abraham and Lot was doing? That's not who they're talking about. As you're going to see from when we hear BK talk about it, they're going to say this is something that Semitic peoples have done. Semitic people that was nomadic had done this. So they given an equation that says Semitic people that were nomadic has done this. Then that means that's what Abraham, Yitzhak, and Ya'acob was doing. Therefore, that's what their children knew. Therefore, this is nothing new to them. This is something that they already knew about, even though the Almighty is talking to them in a way that they didn't have any idea about this. I'm going to get to the scripture soon where you can see how this come about, but I want to let him build up his argument, and I want to slowly poke holes in it, and then I'll go into that so I can just keep with the teaching and don't have to go back and forth with it. So that's the way I've seen to do this. I said, I'm just going to look at what he's saying, poke holes in it, and then by the time we get to the end, I'm going to break down the teaching on what is being said. But I want you to see what it's saying. It says, in this region were more or less settled possessors of flocks, were an unsubstantial element of the population. So again, it's talking about people that lived in that region. Well, the people that lived in that region that he's speaking to were Canaanites. Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov weren't Canaanites, not according to the Bible, but according to these theologians, that's who they were. According to the Bible, no, they wasn't no Canaanites at all, right? It says it was still celebrated and combined with the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So he's saying this is something that he was already celebrating, and all he did was just combine it with HaMatzot, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? That's what he said. Even though scripture does not say that the Israelites already knew this and they was doing this, it says the Almighty told them to do these things. We're going to say it. I'm going to get there. I want to build up your anticipation. So I'm going to let him go ahead and read it off. But I just want you, as you hear what exactly a Cody. That's why I was surprised when he was using this, because I know this brother, is a professional Christian. So I'm thinking you got to believe in the Bible in some kind of way. So you trying to tell me that the Bible ain't telling the truth? That I should believe this guy named Martin Noth and not what it says in the text? That's what it sounds like you telling me. But I digress. Let me go ahead and play the rest.
Stems from a different sphere of life from agricultural feasts of unleavened bread. For originally, it's almost certainly belonged to the milieu of nomadic shepherds, and thus without doubt goes back to the time before they settled in a cultivated region. In this region, where more or less settled possessors of flocks who are not unsubstantial element of the population, it was still celebrated and combined with the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So what this commentary on Exodus is saying, that this Passover, the celebration of the unleavened bread, has a cultic prehistory. All right,
How?
So let's continue.
How, Sway?
Here in the dry season of the year, after the reaping of the fields, nourishment can still be found in their flocks, and when the work of cultivation begins again in the autumn, they return to their winter pasturage. The beginning of their travels, with the accompanying dangers of man and beast, especially for the newborn, of whom the firstborn was particularly precious, must have been occasion for a special animal sacrifice, primarily to keep away evil powers.
All right, now, this guy Martin Loth, boy, oh, you gotta love him. Gotta love him. No, you don't. Anyway, look at what he said. So now he goes on to show you, okay, they are nomadic. they're wandering, they're pasturing, they're leading their flocks to and fro, and they go in their travels and come back to where they started, and they got a certain pattern that they go as they travel, right? As he says that they're pastorage, right? Now, he talks about, it says the beginning of their travels with their company dangers for man and beast. So now, as he's going to say, Martin Noth is going to give the idea that this offering that the Almighty told us was done because he's going to see the blood on the door and he's going to pass over the homes, right? That's what we told. We're going to get to it. I know most of y'all already know this, so I can kind of speak freely, but then I'm going to go in and prove the stuff later. So with this passage, right, this guy's introducing something new. He's saying, no. Originally, the offering was made because it was dangerous to travel and you wanted to have protection as you traveled. So that's why this was done. But you will notice when we get to reading about the Pesach offering, it said nothing about traveling. It didn't say anything about that offering was done to protect us during travel. But yet, Martin Noth says it was done to protect us as we traveled. Look what he says. Then he says, whom the firstborn were particularly precious. So now he's trying to tie in a thing about the firstborn, right? But it's not connecting because it had nothing to do with the firstborn traveling. The Torah was talking about the death of the firstborn, saying that the Almighty himself was going to go in the midst of Egypt and search out to see whose house had this blood on it or not. And if it was not found, then the firstborn would die. Now, after that, because that firstborn was saved by the Almighty from death because of the offering and because of the blood that was on the door post and the lintel, which made the letter Het, which I will show y'all in a minute. Because the blood was on the door post and the lintel, and the firstborn was saved, now the firstborn became special to the Almighty. Not particularly precious, as he said, but the preciousness and the specialness came about because now all that opened the womb, all the firstborn of man and beast belong to the Almighty, the Israelites, because of this act, because of him saving the firstborn of Israel. So it wasn't done because it was something special about them, so they made occasion for a special animal sacrifice. It had nothing to do with that. And then it says primarily to keep away evil powers. So we saying the Almighty is an evil power? Like, what's going on here? So I'm gonna let them read this.
Now remember, this is a biblical commentary, giving us some cultural background.
All right, now, this is not a biblical commentary in the sense of the different commentaries that you may read, especially from Torah perspective, where we have our commentators such as Rambam, Ramban, Ibn Ezra, Rashi, Rashbam, all these different guys that would look at the text and comment on them because they believed. So they're going to come from it in a way where they're explaining this to you from a side of belief. This guy just looks at the Old Testament as a reference. And like, as I told you, most of the theologians coming from seminary, or as some people call it, the cemetery, they don't believe. And that's how this guy's writing this. So don't let that part get you where you say, remember, this is a biblical commentary. No, this is a commentary made by a Christian that don't really believe. That believes in the J document and the E document and the D document and all those different documents that they say people came together and put together to make what we call a Torah. That's what those guys right there believe. I know because I was in a class where they was teaching us this nonsense. That's what they believe. So remember that too. As you're remembering that this is a biblical commentary, remember that most of these guys is writing these biblical commentaries like Martin Noth don't really believe fully. He looks at it as just good stories that help strengthen us and help bring us along and blah, blah, blah. But to believe it wholeheartedly, he doesn't. It's clear from the text because he's sitting there telling us something that the Almighty himself gave was already in the works before the Almighty even gave it.
To the Passover. In view of all this, we should assume that the Passover sacrifice was already known in the time before Israel became settled and before the stay in Egypt.
All right, let's go back.
Assume that the Passover sacrifice was already known in the time before Israel became settled and before the stay in Egypt.
Come on, one more time.
Assume that the Passover sacrifice was already known in the time before Israel became settled and before the stay in Egypt, as a cultic ceremony performed before the spring departure to the summer pasturage.
All right, so he's saying, I played it over and over and over for you because it's supposed to be somebody that's a Bible believer that wrote a commentary, and this guy is basically saying the Bible ain't telling us the truth. Seriously, what ain't telling us? The Bible ain't telling you the truth. Hey, this thing that we call a Passover, he says this Passover sacrifice was already known. This was something that they already knew to do. This wasn't nothing new that the Almighty just gave to them. This is something that they knew to do. When did they know to do this? In the time before Israel became settled. So that's saying before they got to the land and settled in the land. When also was this new? Before their stay in Egypt, before they even went into Egypt and went into bondage, this was something that was already known. How was it known? Was Abraham doing this? Was Yitzhak doing this? Was Ya'acob doing this? No, that's not what Martin Noth is going to tell us how it was known. You know what he's going to tell us? He says as a cultic ceremony. In other words, Martin Noth says this is paganism. It's a cultic ceremony that was performed before the spring departure to the summer. So he's saying this is something that was done as spring was about to transform into summer. That's what this was. I want y'all to get this clear. This is supposedly a Bible commentary by someone who believes in the Bible, telling you that the Bible is not telling you the truth, that this is something that came from some pagan background. It says it then acquired a particular historical reference as a constantly repeated cultic representation of the one great departure, namely the departure from Egypt. So he's saying originally the pagans used this as a departure of spring going into summer. I want you to really understand what he's saying, because he's, like I say, the brother reads real quick, gets to a bop, 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 and then he goes into the kill for what he wants you to go into. But I want you to really understand what this is saying. I want you to really get this. He's saying that the pagans looked at this as a departure of spring as it went into summer. But now, historically, it done got represented with Israel in the great departure from Egypt. Think about that. Obviously, you guys understand. Exactly. That's why I said I was like, this brother's very astute. So I'm just, it just caught me by surprise, Aki. When I seen this, I'm like, where is he coming from with this, right? So you actually buying into what this guy Martin Noth said because he's a certified theologian from the cemetery. As he tells you that Pesach, the original sense, was about spring as it made its departure into summer. And they took the story of that and turned it into an historical account of Israel making its departure from Egypt. Is that what the Kemet community would love? The Kemets would love him. Oh, the Kemet, the Kemetic community, oh, they would love this guy. Because they say that's what we've been trying to tell them Hebrews all along. That book's a bunch of lies. Right? I can see Brother Sardana jumping up like, I told you it was a bunch of lies. Because this guy, Martin Note, that's a Christian, he says it's lies. Think about this. That's why I'm like, what is he doing? What is going on here? You believe this? So the story we got in the Bible is not the true story. The real story is about spring turning into summer, but some kind of way we got it in the Bible that is about Israel leaving out of Egypt. What is going on here? I know it's funny. You gotta laugh not to cry, Aki. You gotta laugh not to cry. I was sitting there like, what is going on? I was really, really confused. So it gets worse. It gets worse.
It then acquired a particular historical reference as a constantly repeated cultic representation of the one great departure, namely the departure of Egypt. So what the commentator is saying here is that there was this ritual that occurred within these nomadic shepherds that in order to have safe travel from one place to the place of pasturage, they would have this ceremony. And they would sacrifice this animal to ward off evil.
Now, is that what Pesach was about? Protection as we travel to ward off evil? Is that what I want y'all to think about that. Is that what the Paschal offering was offered up for? To bid us safe travel as we traveled? Is that what he said in the scripture? Because I could have sworn that's not what the Bible says, but that's what this guy Martin Noth is saying.
And this is something that happened before there was even in Israel, before there was even in Exodus. So the commentator is giving us some cultural background here, right? And there's various festivals that actually Passover draws from. And one of them, we're going to talk about the origin of HaMatzot and the HaMatzot festival. This is from Julian Morgenstern, the American Journal of Theology, University of Chicago Press.
Again, the theologians. I'm trying to tell you guys, anybody who ever been in seminary or cemetery knows they don't teach you to believe in the Bible. I was in shock when I first went there. I remember coming back and talking to the Zacchaeus. I said, you know, they try to teach us against the Bible. He said, yeah. He said, how many people go in believing in the Bible and come out of there and be atheists and don't believe in nothing? And I was like, this is crazy. But this is what these guys do. So, and again, I'm going to let them go ahead and build this one up. So this one is the origin of HaMatzot and the HaMatzot festival. So I guess that's supposed to be Matzot or unleavened bread. So the origin of unleavened bread and the unleavened bread festival, that's what that's supposed to be about. Okay, so let's look at it.
Okay. It says here, it is generally accepted fact that the biblical festival of Pesach, or Passover, is the result of the amalgamation of two ancient festivals.
Now, listen to this. He says that it's accepted fact. Who said that's a fact? The Bible doesn't say that's a fact. So how can he say this is an accepted fact? He says this is an accepted fact, right? This is an accepted fact that the biblical festival of Pesach or Passover is the result of amalgamation. In other words, a combining of two ancient festivals. Again, the idea on it is that the people came up with this. This is something that the Israelites came up with. This wasn't something that the Almighty told them. That's the whole premise behind all of this talk. This is not something that the Almighty told them. This is something that they took upon themselves to do. So it says the original Pesach and the Chag HaMatzot. That's supposed to be Chag HaMatzot, or the Festival of Unleavened Bread. So they saying that's what it was. That it was two festivals that they brought them together. And these two festivals, ancient festivals, were Pesach and Chag HaMatzot. All right, so let me see where he's going with this.
The original Pesach and the Chag HaMatzot. I'm sure I'm butchering that. Please forgive me.
Yeah, well, it's not your fault, BK, to butcher it. They wrote it wrong. They trying to write the Hebrew, and they did a terrible, terrible job at it. But I understand what they was trying to say, but it's terrible the way they wrote that in English.
All right, so again, saying here that it's a grouping. It's a mashup of two ancient festivals.
Now, again, to say this is a matchup, it says nobody wouldn't trust this dude. He's wearing a bro, ain't nothing wrong with a Kango, bro. Stop. I used to love Kangos, man. Come on now, don't do that. Don't do that. Hey, serious. I used to love wearing the Kangos, boy. You can't tell me nothing. I thought I was LL Cool J. See, boy, I was hitting the slick Rick with step out the house, stop short. Oh no, I went back and I forgot my Kango. Like, son, come on now, don't do that. Don't do that. I love Kangos. Like that joint, I'm looking at him like he look jazzy to me. That joint look slick. I'm like, I need to get better. I can't wear hats. Look funny on me. Hats look funny on me. Shoot. So even when I used to wear the Kango, it used to look funny. I used to unbutton it and wear it up and all that stuff, or I would unbutton it and turn it to the back, and then it seemed like it looked cool on me when I did it like that. But no, I love Kangos, Aki. All right, so Pesach was in origin essentially a shepherd festival. So again, they're going with this shepherd festival stuff. It says, observed by the Israelite tribes in common with practically all Semitic people in a nomad stage of civilization. So he's saying that the Israelites, when they was nomadic, and then he says the tribes. So this is when they was tribes. He's saying that they was practicing this festival that everybody was already doing. So again, I'm trying to tell you what these theologians was taught, because I was there. The idea is that the Canaanites and the Israelites are the same people. And somewhere along the time, this certain group of Canaanites decided we're going to separate from them and not do any of the things that they do. That's the bottom line premise. Especially when he get to I think the next guy. Because I argued with my teacher over this at the yeshiva. I was like, no, I'm not buying that at all. Because he laid it out. And again, this was in a biblical literature class. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Just because somebody calling themselves a theologian don't mean that they just really, yeah. All right, anyway. So it says, upon it, apparently, the firstlings were offered as a taboo sacrifice to the deity. So the firstlings, in other words, the firstborn animals was offered as a taboo sacrifice. Listen to the words they're using. To the deity. What there? You see what I'm saying? Convinced of primarily as the creator and bestower of life. Conceived of primarily. So this deity is believed by the people to be the creator and bestower of life. So they offering these firstlings up to them. It's a taboo sacrifice. Right? Let's keep going.
Pesach was in origin essentially a shepherd's festival, observed by the Israelite tribes in common with practically all Semitic peoples in the nomad stage of civilization. Upon it, apparently, the firstlings were offered as a taboo sacrifice to the deity, conceived of primarily as the creator and bestower of life. Again, he's saying that this was a common festival among nomadic Semitic people who were shepherds.
See? Nomadic Semitic people who were shepherds. Now, one should think Abraham, when he left, is taught that he decided that it was only one deity. Remember the people of where he was living, they believed in many deities. He said, no, it's only one. He began to follow the Almighty. Now, you want me to believe that he was still practicing these different things as he followed the Almighty. And you also want me to believe that this stuff was something that was happening way before the Almighty gave it to the Israelites.
Okay, this was not a new thing for these Semitic people who would become the nation of Israel. However, after these nomad tribes had taken up permanent residence in Canaan and had passed over to agricultural stage of civilization with the necessary modification of original shepherd customs and religious rites, this sacrifice of firstlings upon this annual festival developed into the sacrifice of a yearling lamb or kid for each household, now the regular social unit.
All right, so again, listen carefully to what the theologian is saying. We got to really understand what the theologian is saying. He says, however, after these nomad tribes had taken up permanent residence in Canaan. So the idea is these nomadic tribes, which were the Israelites, was wandering around and they was already doing this offering. And it had nothing to do with what we think it has something to do with it now. It was all about a festival. It was all about protection and safe journeys and so forth and so on, right? Said, but then they took up permanent residence in Canaan. And once they took up permanent, this again is going against what the Bible says. The Bible says as they was wandering around being nomadic in the desert, they was only worshiping the Almighty, and that this stuff was already established before that. But they said no. They was wandering around, and then they settled in Canaan, and as they passed over into an agricultural stage of civilization with the necessary modification of the original shepherd customs and religious rites. So now they saying once they began to settle down and became agricultural, they had to change things slightly. So they couldn't say we offer this offering up to give us safe passage because you weren't going nowhere no more. Now you were settled. So now you got to modify what this offering is all about. So they said, and what these rites are about. So look at the highlighted part. This sacrifice of firstlings or the firstborn upon the annual festival developed into a sacrifice of a yearling lamb or a kid or a young goat for each house. So he said now, instead of it being the stuff that the nomadic people did for safe travel, now became something where each house had to offer up this. And it was a regular social unit. So in other words, forget what your Bible says happened. That's not how it happened. This is how it happened. That's what this guy or this guy Julian is saying. Julian Morgenstern. That's what Julian Morgenstern is saying. Julian Morgenstern is saying, don't believe what the Bible say. These guys was already doing this, and then they settled down in the land, and they changed it slightly to what you got today that we call Pesach. Look what he says. This was known as the Paschal Lamb or the Paschal Sacrifice. It became the characteristic feature of the celebration of the original nomad festival in a new agricultural environment. In other words, it had nothing to do with what you heard about in the Bible. This is something that these guys that was nomadic, when they settled down in Canaan, they came up with this. From its beginning, Pesach seems to have been celebrated at night and to have been of only one night's duration. So I want y'all to see clearly. Want you to see clearly what's being said here. What these guys are saying. They're saying don't believe the Bible, right? But you're supposed to be a Christian and believe the Bible. I'm confused. As y'all seen it in a monologue or the promo, I was confused. Right? What is going on here?
This was known as the Paschal Lamb or Paschal Sacrifice and became the characteristic feature of the celebration of the original Nomad Festival in the new agricultural environment. From its beginning, Pesach seems to have been celebrated at night and to have been only one night's duration. All right, now, let me see what's up with the people in the chat.
Now, why he's saying that what's up with the people in the chat? This right here, this guy, I really had a problem with this guy. I read this book right here. Oh my goodness, I read this book right here. Had to read this at the yeshiva in a biblical literature class. And oh man, that was such a hard class for me. Because unlike with Morgan, at least with Morgan in the religious class, I could still quote from the Bible, and you know, the teacher would be like, okay, well, that could be it. It could be this. And I was able to make good arguments from the Bible to support the Bible, to show that, no, the Bible says this. He said that. What's going on here? He was like, oh, yeah, you could be right. Yeah, this, that, other. They ain't really try to do me like he did the lady. But when I went to the yeshiva, and this is one of the toughest teachers that was there. He was an archaeologist, one of the toughest teachers that was there. And he's teaching this this course called Biblical Literature, right? So I'm thinking, okay, well, the Bible is a primary source. He tells me the Bible's not a primary source. He wants me to read all these other people like Richard Hess and other people's some other books that I read as well. And those were the sources he wanted me to look at. And we got into a great debate one day, right? Because while we in this debate, and I'm sitting there looking at it, I'm like, you know, he began to talk about, again, he had that premise that the Canaanites and the Israelites was the same people. He kept saying, I don't agree with that. He said, well, some people may have came from Egypt. That's probably where that story came from. And he was staunchly against everything. He's saying they was the same people, that somewhere along the line they just split up and start doing things different, start saying we not gonna be like them guys over there. That's how he broke it down. And he used people like Richard Hess and other people to substantiate his belief and his points with that, right? And I used to use the Torah to battle against him, and he was failing me terribly, to the point where I had to have a meeting. I came into his office and we were sitting there, and if you was outside that door, you would have thought it was some fights going on in there, because I'm sitting there trying to explain to him about stuff, and he's telling me that he doesn't want to hear me. He wants to hear the source. So I said, well, wait a minute. You know, because Morgan, because that's all I used to do was quote the sources, right? I wouldn't have my voice heard at all. And then Morgan, they taught us, no, we want to hear you, and you just use the source to substantiate what it is that you're saying, but we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you think, how you feel, right? So now I got kind of used to writing like this. So I'm in this class, and this guy says, I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from the text. Like, he said it just like that. So I said, so you don't want to hear from me? I don't want to hear from you. Like, because we was going back and forth. I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from the text. I said, okay, you hear from the text. I'm thinking, you don't know me. That's what I always used to do. Morgan made me change that, but I could easily switch back, and I did. And when I switched back, I was able to use Hess and others' words against them to bring out what it is that I was saying without letting it be my voice at all. And reluctantly, I passed the class. Not reluctantly on my part, but, you know, because I wrote good papers and so forth, so on. You know, the doctor had to pass me because I was doing an excellent job. But anyway, these guys don't believe. And Hess is Jewish, as far as if I'm correct. I could be wrong, but I could have sworn that he was Jewish, right? Don't believe. These theologians. Let me try to tell you this is a PSA, a public service announcement. These theologians that you're reading in these different books do not believe in the Bible. They believe that this book was put together from 4 different books and they all combine them. They believe that these people, they believe that the Israelites was really Canaanites and they split off. That's what they believe. And that's how they break it down. Let me see what you say. You said, but most Christians, they read the Bible, but do not follow the Bible. I go through this one all the time. Yeah, I feel you with that, Aki. I ain't gonna read the rest, but I feel you with that. But yeah, this is crazy, right? This is like, what is going on here? Like, seriously. So this guy, Hess, I know him well. So as he was going, when I first read this, he was going through it, I was kind of listening. I'm like, and when he said Hess, I said, oh yeah, I know him. That's what I used to, this book right here? No. Nah. So I already know where Hess is coming from. So I'm gonna let him go ahead and get into it.
All right, everybody's cool. Please like, share the link. We're getting into Israelite religions, an archaeological and biblical survey by Richard S. Hess. He
Mm-hmm.
says, speaking of yet another festival, the Imar Zikru festival compares with the spring festivals of Passover and Unleavened Bread, as well as other ritual festivals in West Semitic religion of the second millennium BC. There are at least six important points of comparison. First, both are referred to by Semitic verbal roots to speak, remember, invoke. Right? The Zukru festival is an invocation to the gods with a spoken component no longer preserved.
So that Semitic verbal root is zakar. That's what they're supposed to say, zakar. And zakar means to remember. I'm not sure if it means speak, but I know it means to remember. Zakar means to remember. All right. So just because it means remember, that's just trying to equate it as something. I'm gonna let him finish.
Fleming compares this to Hebrew, quote, giving thanks, and to the biblical Hebrew, an offering that remembers God and produces a, quote, fragrance for the direct point of contact between the giver and God. Both.
All right, now he says Fleming. So this is somebody that Hess is quoting from. So Hess is quoting this from someone else. So he's using this person as a reference or a source. Hess is. So Hess is saying Fleming compares this to Hebrew giving thanks or the Todah offering. For those of y'all familiar with the Todah offering, the Todah offering is an offering of giving thanks, right? And to the biblical Hebrew. Now, once you learn about the offerings and you want to be able to tell what's what, we all understand and know that, Pesach does remind you of a Todah offering, but that still doesn't mean that it came before anything. The Todah offerings, we get that in the book of Vayikra, where he called, or Leviticus, for those of y'all don't know, we get that in the book of Leviticus where it tells us about this offering, this Todah or Thanksgiving offering, right? So that doesn't take away and say, oh, because it's a Todah offering, we know it's a Todah offering. That's one thing that I try to tell a lot of people in Christian when they talk about the Pesach offering and say he was our Passover, he took away our sins, and like, no, the Passover offering don't take away sins. The Passover offering is a Todah offering. It's an offering of giving thanks of the Almighty for delivering you from a miraculous event where somewhere where you should have died, which was what Pesach was about. That people, if they wouldn't have had the blood on the door, would have died. So this is a way of giving thanks. So I definitely agree with that. I say this guy Hess is the most slipperiest of them all, but y'all watch him. That's why you see I'm really going at all this stuff at him, because I hated the class we had to read Hess. Oh my goodness. Anyway, he says, an offering that remembers Elohim and produces a fragrance. Now, all the offerings produce a fragrance to Elohim. The Olah offering, the Todah offering, the Chatat. So that fragrance thing is nothing special, but see how he uses it here to try to confuse you? Oh, yes, it talks about a fragrance, right? All the offerings do that, especially the Olah, which is totally burnt. So the fragrance totally goes up to the Almighty. That's why it's called an Olah, because it ascends. The smoke ascends to the Almighty. So what are you saying? All right. It says, second, both Sukuru and Passover festivals required a roasting of a lamb. Now, For Pesach, you don't just have to roast the lamb. You can also roast the goat. It said either a lamb or a kid. So it's whichever one you decide. So it doesn't have to be a lamb, but I'm not going to be that technical with it. But okay. It says third, in both festivals, twilight is critical time. Now, the way he wrote that, he didn't really go specific. So I'm like, what does he mean by that? And what does he mean by twilight, right? Because what we're going to see is the Hebraic term that they translate as twilight is ma'ariv biyin ma'ariv, which means the evening, or it means between the evenings. Biyin ha'ma'ariv, biyin ha'ma'ariv, right? Between the evenings. Between the evenings is what we call the afternoon. So does he mean the afternoon? Is that what he's saying? Is he saying twilight? What does he mean by twilight? Because that's when the Pesach offering had to be offered up, between the evenings. Fourth, at the Amar, this festival constitutes a 7-day sequence in which the climatic event happens on a powerful 7th day. Now, we can see that this has nothing to do with HaMatzot, because the climatic event did not happen on a 7th day. The climatic event happened before the first day. The climatic event happened on the 14th after they slew the lamb, and then they put the blood on the doors, and then as the first day ended in, that was the climatic event when the Almighty seen the blood and passed over the house. So this is kind of off. So they're using it saying, oh, the powerful 7th day climatic event. But then when you look at the text, this was the kind of stuff I pointed out to the teacher and he got mad. When you look at the text, the climatic event didn't happen on the 7th day. The climatic event happened on the first day. And it started before the first day with the slaying of the lamb. So, what are we talking about right here? I don't want to hold you guys too long. I wasn't expecting this to go this long, but y'all know me. I like to get really in depth in the stuff. I don't like to just jump in and try to speed through. I really want us to look at this because I want us to really understand everything that's taking place. Everything that's taking place, I want us to understand and get a handle on it so we can know. All right, so I'm probably give it a few more minutes and then stop it, and then go from there. All right. I really wanted to get through Hess so I can show the other stuff, and then we can come back and look at the different things and touch on it from there. All right, so let's let them play this through.
Zerkru and Passover festivals require the roasting of a lamb. Third, in both festivals, twilight is a critical time. Fourth, at Emar, this festival constitutes a 7-day sequence in which the climatic event happens on the powerful 7th day. So here we're seeing...
And again, no shots against my brother BK, but he put an emphasis on that powerful 7th day, which shows that he doesn't understand how Pesach is celebrated because, of course, Christians don't celebrate it, so they don't get it. The 7th day is not the powerfulest day. It's not. The powerfulest day of the sequence, if we want to use it in the term that he's talking about, is the first day. Everybody who celebrates Pesach knows and understands this. The first day and the 7th day are holy convocations, but it doesn't say the 7th day is more powerful than any other day. I just want us to get that straight, because the way Hess is writing is he's trying to put this emphasis on something, and he knows his audience is unaware. So I'm gonna make them aware, because I really did not like reading Hess work. Was like, oh my goodness.
We're doing a compare and contrast, and we're seeing that this festival is very much similar to what we've come to know as Passover.
Now, also, if we look at this, we can say this festival is very much comparable to what we know as Sukkot, except it's Sukkot, we know they dwelled in booths, right? But it's a 7-day festival, and the 8th day is the climatic, and it's the 8th day, Shemini Atzeret, right? That powerful 8th day is the last great day, and we say that last day, that great day of the feast, right? That's Sukkot, not Chag HaMatzot. It doesn't say that the last day of unleavened bread was a powerful climatic ending. Where are you getting this from? But again, if you don't do it, you're not going to know. He said, I get it. I do believe BK is just using random books to back up a theory he might have heard and not understand the people who wrote the books are biased. Yeah, or being apologetic. Maybe he with the theology school, he's kind of leaning in that way. I don't know. Only if the brother comes out and explains his stance will I know. But what I do know is these books and works he's using is saying don't believe the biblical account. Now, if this is the end of Hess, I'm going to go to the biblical account so we can look at it and measure it up to Hess. So I want to get to the end of Hess, and then next week I'll pick up from after Hess is read. So I'm trying to let Hess end out. Let me see if Hess about to end.
And it was celebrated by other Semitic people within this region prior to their being in Israel. Okay? Like the biblical feast of Passover and unleavened bread, Zukru also occurs in the 15th day of the first month and lasts for a 7-day cycle, in which the first and last days are the most important in terms of activities.
All right, so now I know he put an emphasis on the first and the last days are the most important in terms of activities, but also with Chag HaMatzot, the first and the last days are Sabbaths or holy convocations or high Sabbaths, as it says in the renewed covenant or Brit Kadashah. But again, that's also the same way as Sukkot. Again, the first day of Sukkot is a high Sabbath. And the last day, the 8th day, that great day, is a high Sabbath. Now, it doesn't happen on the 15th day. Then again, Sukkot, I think, is on the 15th day of the 7th month. I believe Sukkot is on the 15th, yeah, because it is. Because Yom Kippur is on the 10th day of the 7th month. 5 days later is. So it's something about the 15th day that makes it special. We know the Almighty has different numbers that have specialness to it. The pagans also could have had different ideas about that as well. But to say that Pesach and all that came from them is ludicrous, to say the least. So let's go on. Let me see.
5th, all the gods are brought out of the city for the Zukru festival, and the populace, who also come out for the Zukru festival, is provided with bread and drink.
Now, Hess tries to tie this in by talking about bread and drink. What kind of bread, Hess? Because on Chag HaMatzot, you only can have unleavened. You had to eat it every day. And it wasn't something that was given to you as you came out and they say, here, have unleavened bread. You had to make it. That's the only bread you can make. It says, and drink. What kind of drink? We know later on the wine became a part of it, but essentially, to the Pesach, you don't hear any mention of wine at first. Wine came along eventually in the usage we know by the time the Mashiach was walking around, right? By the time the Rebbe was walking around, wine was incorporated in this feast. But essentially at first, it was only three things. It was the unleavened bread, the HaMatzot. It was the lamb, the paschal lamb of the Pesach. And it was the ma'or, the bitter herbs. That was it. This ain't about no wine. This Zukuru festival didn't mention anything about unleavened bread. It just says bread. Then they say drink, but they don't say nothing about the bitter herbs. It just talks about special bread with drink. What's the special bread with drink? Is it matzot? If it's not matzot, then it's not the same. Because it had to be unleavened bread. Could not have regular bread for those 7 days. It's very clear in the text. But since you guys don't really believe, well, I ain't going to say you, Aki. I don't know if you believe or not, BK Apologist. But the people you quoting from don't believe. Let's make that clear. They don't believe. All right, so he says, all the gods was brought out of the city for the festival of Zukuru. Now we know that's crazy because it's only one and you're not going to bring no idols out. So what are you talking about? So that doesn't have anything to do with the Almighty at all. That's straight pagan, that part right there. So you can't tie that in with the Almighty, right? Then it says, these compared to the banquet of Israel's elders with Elohim in Exodus 24. That don't compare to no banquet with the elders. What are you talking about? You talk about that time when the elders ate and when they was celebrating the conversion of Moshe's father-in-law. Oh man, my mind went blank. I cannot remember his name right now. But Moshe's father-in-law came along with Moshe. He brought his wife and his children to Moshe. And Yithro, that's right, Yithro. The conversion of Yithro, or some would say Jethro, right? If that's what it is, then how does that equate with this? That ain't even had nothing to do with Chag HaMatzot. So again, Hess tries to pull stuff out. Look at the other thing he says. He says in David's festival of bringing the ark into Jerusalem. We talk about this festival. They was bringing the ark back from where it was at. The ark had been sieged, and eventually they tried to bring it back on a wagon. It fell. The guy touched the ark. He died. And Melech the weed said, how's the ark going to come to me? And I got blood shed on my hand. I'm just paraphrasing. And he says, hey, I'm just going to leave it here. And he left it at the guy's house. And the guy, I think his name was Uriah, he began to prosper. And once Melech the weed seen that the ark wasn't nothing to be fed, and had to understand that the guy, well, I think Uriah was the one that died. I know I'm saying it wrong because I'm trying not to spend too much time and go to the text. But you know the story about the ark when it was on a cart. They had a new cart. They put the ark on it. And the whole thing is, how's the ark supposed to be brought? It's supposed to be on a poles. It's supposed to be on the back of the Levitical tribe that carries or bears the ark. They supposed to bear it on their shoulders, not on a cart. But these guys put it on a cart. It almost fell off the cart, and the guy stuck his hand out. I think that was Uriah. I can't remember. But the guy stuck his hand out trying to protect the ark from falling. touched the ark and he died. So then it's like, woe is me. Melech the Weed said, I'm not bringing it to me. So now when Melech the Weed decided he wasn't going to bring the ark to him, but then when he found out when they left it at the other guy's house and the other guy prospered, he said, okay, well, it's nothing to be fearful of. And he said he bought it. And as he bought it, they said they slaughtered different offerings and they bought it. And he danced with all his might till his clothes came off. Said he danced like he never danced before. Melech the Weed just danced in the street, right? And his wife, one of his wives, ridiculed him and he cut her off. It was crazy, right? One of his wives, I believe it was Saul's daughter, Shaul's daughter, ridiculed her. Talk about, you supposed to be a king, look at you, right? And paraphrasing. And he kind of said, oh, you being disrespectful, again paraphrasing, and he cut her off, right? All right, so that was a one-time thing. He made it like David had this festival all the time. Hey, let's bring the ark out. I'm going to dance. And tried to equate it to them talking about bringing the deities out. That was the Weed bringing the ark back into Jerusalem to go into the Mishkan, to go into the temple. It's not something that happened all the time. So how you going to relate that to that? It really makes sense. But this is the type of stuff that Hess does, right? And if you're not astute or you are not well read in the Tanakh, you would just read what the guy Hess says. Say, oh, yeah, I remember something about David and dancing. Oh, that was something he did all the time. No, it wasn't nothing he did all the time. That was something he did that one time. What is Hess talking about? Says Passover was also celebrated with special bread and drink. Passover was celebrated with unleavened bread, and it was not celebrated with drink until years later as it progressed in that. As the Talmud says, or I think it was Hillel says, or was it Rabban Gamaliel? One of them, I think it was Hillel, says you need that three things when you talk about Pesach. He didn't say nothing about a special drink. You need the Paschal lamb, you need the maror or the bitter herbs, and you need the matzot. Nothing was said about a drink. So again, this guy Hess is trying to play on what you see with communion and other stuff and say, see, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. No, it ain't. It's not the same thing. Now, I wanted to kind of show y'all different things in the text. So I'm just going to show you this one thing, and then I'm going to go out from there. So I'm going to show you this one thing from the text, and then and then I'm going to go out from there. It's not gonna let me do what I want to do. Let me see. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do it that way. All right, so let me do it this way. Hold on. Let me see. Let me see. Can I do this? Yeah, I can do that. I want you guys to see something. Because I think at this point we need to see what the scriptures say. Y'all may hear me go on and on about what the scriptures say. But I think we really need to see what the scriptures say as we close out on this. And then I'll start back off what the scriptures say next week. And then we can go from there. But I just think we should at least hear something that the scripture says. Because I don't want us to, we done heard so much non-biblical talk and rhetoric from these theologians that's supposed to believe in the Almighty, and yet they're telling us things that the Almighty is not even saying, but they supposed to believe so much, right? Look at what it says. It says the Pesach instituted. So this let you know, this is when the Pesach was first taught of or spoken of. Now they want us to believe that the Pesach always was around. That this is something the Israelites already knew about. Now let me fix this, because I want us to see. I want us to see this, and I want y'all to see me as we go through this. All right. So I want us to see this. All right, so look at what it says. Now Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aharon in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be the beginning of months. This month shall be your beginning of months. Now, if they already knew, because they saying this was already known, this wasn't nothing new, that this was the beginning of months, why is the Almighty coming at them telling them, hey guys, this is the beginning of the month for you? Evidently, they did not look at this as the beginning of the month. But again, if we go by their account, their guys saying, bump what their Bible say, this is what I'm saying. So it goes on. It says, speak to the children of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, every man shall take for himself a lamb according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of persons, according to each man's needs. You shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Now, as he's explaining all of this to them, they should be saying, we already know this, Moshe. You don't need to break this down. Our ancestors been doing this forever. This is an old Semitic custom, right? They aren't saying that. This is all being presented as something that you guys don't know what to do, so I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. So this is not something that, hey, Semitic's been doing this forever. And how long was these guys in bondage? These guys been in bondage and became Egyptianized, right? So let's look at this. Let's look at this. Because they saying it like, oh, this is something everybody should know. Now, I want us to look at this part about twilight. He saw something special about twilight. Something special about twilight. Let's look at twilight. Right here, right? I want you to see what they translating as twilight. This is twilight, right? Now look at what this says. This says being. So this is being. This means between. Not at. It don't mean at. I'm going to click on it, let you see. Bayin means an interval, a space between. That's what it means. It don't mean at. It means between. Ha-avrim. Ha-arbim. Ha-arbim. Ha-arbim means the evenings. Let's see. Might say, that don't mean the evenings. What does that say? Evening. And when you put the im at the end of Erev, it's Erevim, means evenings. And ha in front of it means da. That's a definite article, hey. All right, so this is between the evenings. That's what twilight means right here. They translate it as twilight, but it means between the evening. That means the afternoon. So if what Hess is writing about means at dusk or at dark or when the evening about to come about, then it doesn't mean being ha'arbim. Being ha'arbim means between the evenings, which is the afternoon. So I just want to close that out. I know I done went way past where we at. I'm definitely gonna come back here because there's a lot to say, and I'm just gonna start off with this teaching and then just go back to what the brother is saying. Because this is crazy, right? I really want y'all to get this understanding, because you know, people like this, these theologians are crazy, and I really want us to get this understanding because, again, when I first seen this, I was in shock. I'm like, what is BK talking about? And do you realize he's using people that don't believe in the Bible, that's saying the Bible? If you really, that's why I took the time to break down what they were saying and didn't just gloss over it because I wanted to speed through. Y'all know me, I take my time and make this into a series or two. So, but I didn't just want to gloss over that because when you look at it carefully, these guys clearly are saying that this Bible and what we're reading is not true. And what they are saying is the truth. And we should believe them over the Bible. Well, guess what? Let every man be a liar, but Yahweh be true. Torah is what I stand on. I'm not standing on Hess. I'm not standing on Julian. I'm not standing on, what was the other guy's name? Whatever the other guy's name was. I'm not standing on none of those guys, right? I'm standing on Torah. That's where I'm standing. So with that being said and done, I thank all of y'all for hanging in there with me as we went over. Didn't mean to stay over that long. Thanks for my brother Tony, for helping me get through this and right there with me as we go through this. And for Sister Michelle that tapped in, but I know she probably had to get up for work, so she tapped out. And for all the people who want to catch it on a replay, just thank all of y'all and just appreciate you all. And with that, I'm going to bid you shalom. Shalom, guys. See you next week.